welcome to Leeds Beckett University students. Welcome to this webinar series and webinar one, the very first one. This one is all about finding your strengths. You can see where it fits into the series here on this screen here. So we're looking at 8 sessions that we have to cover with you, and these are all based upon my book From Learner to Earner, and they also replicate the graduate recruitment assessment process. So you can either tune in to all 8, or you can just dip in and out of the ones which suit you, depending on where you are with your own journey. So a few introductions before we get stuck into the content. So my name's Sophie. I'm the MD here at SRS, Recruitment and Employability Experts, and also the author of the book which I mentioned the series is based upon. We work with universities and employers within the graduate recruitment space. So we design assessment materials for employers and also help them to recruit their graduates. And we work with a number of universities on various different things, including running our assessment centre simulations. I'm pretty sociable, so I'd love to connect with you on whichever platform you're most comfortable with, and see my details there on the screen. Helen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, so I'm the University Partnerships Manager for SRS, work quite closely with Sophie to run webinars, workshops and assessment centre experiences for students. Again, as Sophie mentioned, I'd love to connect with you, so feel free to invite yourself to my network on LinkedIn. It'd be great to follow up with you there. Thank you. Hope you enjoy the webinar.
Great, thanks Helen. So at various points in the webinar series, we will be joined by special guests to hear their valuable insight and top tips. Today, we have some advice from Gary Argent. Gary has worked in graduate recruitment as a recruiter for Logica and has also been a head of the careers service at City University. And he's also worked for our industry body, which is the Institute of Student Employers. He now runs Graduate Transitions, which helps employers and universities work together to enable the transition of graduates into the workplace. So he has some great information to share with us at various points during this session. So you can see from the agenda what we're going to be covering in this session. Now, as it stands at the time of recording, we are in a very strange situation in terms of the global pandemic that we are experiencing. And I know that many of you will be worried about the jobs market and perhaps apprehensive about the number of opportunities that are available. It's still really too early to say what the true impact will be. Various articles have suggested that short-term SMEs will be hit hardest, but we have still seen larger companies hiring even in the middle of everything. Being old enough to have seen the economy go through a recession, my own take on it is that there will be some recruitment freezes, but the length of these will depend on how quickly things bounce back. Some industries clearly will be hit harder than others. If you know the industry that you want to go into and it is one that is hard hit, you might need to wait longer to secure a role, and it is worth seeing if you have transferable skills that you could put to use in a temporary job, or you might give consideration to getting a part-time job and volunteering in your chosen field until things pick up. But rest assured, things will pick up, and the graduate market is a recruitment market that does bounce back quickly because the cost of labour is seen as good value, and also established companies and organisations know that if they freeze for too long, it causes talent shortages in the years to come. Resilience and drive are often cited by employers as being important during normal times. And in these very abnormal times, these skills are even more important. So those of you that can stay focused and keep applying will be the ones that secure the jobs. Many students will give up before they even start thinking about applying, so don't be one of them. And Helen is going to give us a bit of an update as to where the market is at a bit further along in this session. So keep an ear out for that. So let's get stuck into the content. So we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and a job that plays to your strengths is likely to be much more fun. By figuring out your strengths early and factoring them into your job search, you're more likely to be successful at the job that you land, and you're more likely to love that job too. Some sectors may value certain skills above others. Broadly speaking though, most employers are looking for similar skills from their graduate recruits. Bear in mind that they may not be looking for a huge number of technical skills at this point, because these can be taught at a later stage. During recruitment, they're looking for you to be motivated and enthusiastic about the opportunity, and are more likely to be assessing you on your soft skills. Take a look at this chart from the Institute of Student Employers Student Development Survey 2019, which highlights the skills employers find graduates to be lacking. As I mentioned before, concern about resilience was most commonly cited in terms of graduates. Interestingly, school leavers are considered to be more resilient than graduates. We're not sure why that is, but quite an interesting point to know. You can use this chart to get an understanding of the skills that employers are looking for. So consider which of these are your strengths and which are your development areas. Can you think of examples from university life, ideally outside of your course, or perhaps work experience which best illustrate a particular strength? I've got a task here which you can complete in your own time. So it's very clear, it's very easily laid out there, and I just want to point out that it is worth doing this task, especially if you get a friend or family member to share their thoughts, because they can provide a really interesting insight and perhaps highlight some points that you haven't yourself considered. The information that you'll get as a result of completing this task will be useful at various points of your job search. So definitely come back to this one in your own time and make the time to do this one. We're going to hear from Gary now. So I mentioned Gary earlier in the introduction, and he has plenty of excellent advice. So let's hear what he's got to say now.
Get involved in lots of different activities while you're at university, even if some of these are happening online at the moment. Join a couple of clubs or societies. Be active in the student union. Do some voluntary work, or get yourself a mentor if you can. Along with your studies and any part-time jobs, these activities will expose you to lots of different situations and give you opportunities to try new things. You'll find out what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy and what you're good at. As well as helping you to understand your preferences and strengths, these activities will help you build up plenty of examples for your application forms and for your interviews.
Thank you to Gary there. So let's move on and have a look at work experience now, and have a bit of a think about how important work experience is and what can make that up. So we do know that work experience is important, and I'm sure that's something that won't come as any surprise to anybody. Over a third of the recruiters that took part in the research that contributes to the Times Top 100 graduate employers repeated their warnings from previous years, which are that graduates who have no previous work experience are unlikely to be successful during the selection process. This is backed up by Helen, who is head of future talent recruitment at British Airways. And when she was reflecting on her time at Marks and Spencer's, which was her previous role, she told me that work experience is key. It doesn't necessarily have to be directly relevant, although this varies by scheme, for example. So with her looking at fashion design and buyers when she was at M&S, it would have been more useful to have relevant experience. Now, it does give candidates more to draw upon at interview and assessment, more confidence, and the ability to better transition into the world of work. So it is something that is important. Some of the best work experience comes in the form of an internship or placement with an employer that you're considering for a graduate role. This can be a great way to find out if the employer is a good fit for you. You might end up hating the work, but you will have been paid for the experience, can discard the employer from your future job searches, and can enjoy the benefit of having the experience on your CV. The best case scenario is that you enjoy the placement, they love you, and you head back to your final year at university with a graduate job offer in hand. Indeed, the Institute of Student Employers reported that they rehired an average of 52% of their interns and 43% of their summer placement students. My own view on work experience is that it is a key way to differentiate yourself from the competition. There's a benchmark on qualifications for graduate roles, so you might have to have maybe a 2-1 or a 2-2 and a certain number of UCAS points to even apply. Because so many applicants will meet this standard, work experience can be the way to stand out. It's certainly an advantage to have work experience that's relevant to the role, whether you were paid for the work or not. But don't discount the value of a part-time or summer job that seems unconnected to what you do. Helen is going to now just give us a bit of an update on what the current situation is in terms of opportunities.
Thanks, Sophie. So as you said, it's definitely more challenging to secure work experience in the current climate. And recent research from the Institute of Student Employers has indeed shown that there has been a drop in the number of interns for both larger firms and smaller businesses. However, there are a number of employers still offering work experience, and although they've had to shorten or modify these opportunities, they are offering virtual placements and projects that can be completed remotely. Now, these can vary in length from a few weeks to several days to a few hours even. So, for example, the law firm Clifford Chance, they offer a 3-day virtual scheme that they intend to follow up with actual work shadowing when the crisis is over. Other firms offer virtual internships in the form of online modules that allow you to respond to hypothetical situations and understand the framework of the business. In some cases, you get a certificate and it's a lot more evidence for your CV. But even if you can't secure work experience in the short term, you can still use this time to register your interest and arrange something for the future. And for any company that you're particularly interested in, really research their website. See if they're running any webinars or video conferences that give you an insight into working with them. There's likely to be some larger firms that have already contacted your careers team to create some content for insight sessions, so definitely touch base with them first. And off the back of this, you can then network with the people who ran those insight days, who ran the webinars, maybe use LinkedIn to follow up and inquire about further opportunities. So ultimately, it is harder to get work experience, but it is still very possible. And as we've shown, it's definitely worth doing in terms of your career. I'll hand you back to Sophie.
Great. Thank you, Helen. So let's see what our guest, Gary, thinks in the next video.
Work experience is great because it gives you tangible examples to talk about. And as a recruiter, I love examples. They show me that you can actually do all the things you describe on your CV. It's great if the work experience is in a relevant area. That's the gold standard, if you like, but work experience in other areas is valuable too. Recruiters look for transferable skills, something that you've learned in one context but could use somewhere else. For example, a project that you've undertaken while volunteering in your local community can teach you about planning, teamwork, resilience, leadership, a whole range of skills that you'll be using in your graduate job. Tell me about what you've learned in one situation and show me how you'll transfer those skills into my organisation, and you'll definitely catch my attention.
Thank you, Gary. Let's take a look at this case study now that you can see on the screen. So Josh is a student, well, he was a graduate actually, that I did a little bit of coaching with last year. So he was looking for a graduate role in management consulting, had a real passion for that kind of work, but didn't have any what he would call relevant work experience. So when he was getting through to interview stage, he kept using course examples from his university course. Now, then he wasn't being offered the job, and clearly that was the issue. And we had a conversation about how course examples don't tend to stand out very well because they could literally just be used by any student at all. So that's where work experience examples do tend to be more unique. So on reflection, he was able to identify skills from his role working in a gym, whereas before he just hadn't sort of seen that as being remotely relevant to management consulting. But as you can see on the screen there, he had examples of teamwork, working under pressure, coaching, and these were skills that were transferable in any workplace. And once he got his head around that and how he could articulate those clearly to an employer, he soon secured a job in management consulting, which was brilliant. But what do you do if you literally have no work experience at all? So I coached a graduate a couple of years ago who had an outstanding academic track record. She was called Sarah. She had the highest marks in her GCSEs and A-levels, as well as the top grades in her undergraduate and master's degrees. She was ready to get her first graduate job, but couldn't get beyond that application form stage. We quickly identified that this was due to her lack of work experience and inability to make her responses unique or impressive. She did have some voluntary work experience, which she hadn't put on her applications. Because it was unpaid, she didn't think it was relevant at all. She'd also taken part in some interesting activities in university. When we look more closely at these, it was easy to identify some examples which showcased her transferable skills and provided much stronger answers for her applications. This was a light bulb moment for Sarah, who went on to secure her dream job shortly afterwards. So let's move on and look at extracurricular activities now. So most students will get involved in activities at university or even outside of university which aren't directly related to their course. This can be a great way to make friends and do what you love. It also provides a wealth of opportunities to add interesting and transferable skills to your CV and application, which you can then talk about at interview. Look out for opportunities to take on responsibility within these activities. Can you be in charge of increasing membership numbers? A great example of influencing in sales. Or can you work your way up to a leadership role? Sports clubs provide great opportunities for teamwork and leadership. Being a course rep would highlight communication skills and perhaps an ability to deal with conflict. When you start to think of your hobbies in this way, it's easy to find transferable skills. But don't restrict your activities to only what's available. If a club or society doesn't exist, create your own. This could be a great way to demonstrate innovation, influence employers, perhaps to secure sponsorship, and lead a team. Or you might have a side hustle going on outside of university. Even better if it's something with a tangible output. So we heard of an example of someone that had a store on eBay that was making £500 a month, for example. Making the best use of your time at university will help you secure a graduate role. You need to achieve a balance between developing strong technical skills in your degree and soft skills that make you more employable. With TEF and graduate outcomes, universities are under a lot more pressure to show how they're developing students' employability. Career services are often underutilised, so investigate what support they can offer, whether this is through employability workshops, their career consultants, employer contacts, or alumni networks. So it's vital that you have a clear career strategy. This will help you to manage the direction that you want your career to take, as well as identify and acquire the skills, qualities, and experiences that you'll need. How you go about identifying your career strategy is up to you. Some people may take a detailed approach, whereas others may be more visual and use only key points to focus their direction. Either way, it needs to work for you. Take time to think before ploughing into applications and job searches. Are you clear on the skills, qualities, and knowledge that you have? Once you know these things, you can match them to the job roles that you're interested in. You'll also be aware of any areas that you may need to develop to achieve your goals. So give a bit of consideration to those questions there on the screen. So think about the skills and qualities that you have, what you're good at, what you need to develop, what the requirements for the role that you want to secure are, and what are your own job requirements. Being able to answer these questions will allow you to really sell yourself at interview and enable you to showcase what you can bring to the job and the organisation. Figuring out which job roles will suit you best and how to apply your skills and qualities can be the most difficult part of setting your career plan. Think of your options and review them against your values and preferences, considering these questions. Which job roles best suit my skill set? What areas could I see myself working in? But what do you do if you don't know what to do? Here's Gary again with his insight.
Visit your university career service. They'll be offering online appointments at the moment. The careers advisors will be able to help you think through your options and might suggest ideas that you've not thought of before. For example, by sharing information showing you what other students who studied your course did after they graduated, or by putting you in touch with alumni. Remember, you don't have to know what you want to do before you make the appointment. Careers advisors do their jobs because they genuinely enjoy the process of helping students work through their options, and they'll be very happy to help you.
Thank you to Gary. So you may have come across the model that you can see now on the screen, and this is a really useful model to start making some decisions. You can think about the information that you've gathered and start to formulate what your career goals might look like over the next few years. This smarter model can help you break down your goals. These goals will be specific, Measurable, achievable, realistic, timely, exciting, and reviewable. So let's break that down a bit. So specific, be as clear as you can and avoid ambiguous statements. Measurable, you need to be able to see what you've achieved. Achievable, your goals should motivate you but be attainable. Realistic, it should be reasonable and avoid the realm of fantasy. Timely, so create timeframes for completing the steps towards the goal. For example, doing short courses or talking with someone about the skills required for a particular job. Exciting, the goal should be something you actually want so that you'll be motivated during the time it takes to achieve it. And reviewable, don't set the goal in concrete, be flexible though. We've got a goal setting worksheet to help you get started, which we'll make available to you along with this webinar. We also have a career planning checklist, which might be a useful tool to get you thinking about the preparation you need to do before you start your job search. And we're going to make sure that you have access to that as well. Going to move on now to look at values, and these are really important to establish before you start applying to specific companies. Employers will often encourage their employees to complete engagement surveys so that they can identify the most important characteristics in the employment relationship. They want to know how to keep their employees motivated. You can use the same characteristics to identify what you're looking for from your dream employer when carrying out your job search. Here are some characteristics for you to consider. Culture and work environment. So while salaries and company benefits may appeal to lots of potential candidates, the organisation's culture is often what determines whether an employee will fit and actually enjoy the job. The working environment will also determine if an employee will be happy in the workplace. So ask yourself, does the culture fit with my personal values and principles? Does the organisation provide a healthy, positive and encouraging work environment? Does the organisation celebrate success and recognise people's achievements? Flexibility. Another important factor is work-life balance. So you shouldn't be expected to always work long hours, for example, at the expense of your personal life. Employers should consider reasonable time off for employees, including holidays, paternity and maternity leave, and those sorts of things. Many employers offer flexible working arrangements, such as working at home days or time banking to help employees get the right balance. We've seen a huge increase in working at home and very flexible arrangements, so hopefully that's something that is here to stay. Consider how you can get the right work-life balance. What would work for you if you had the choice? What is the organisation's approach to flexible working? What policies do they already have in place? A great example that I've seen of an employer offering flexibility is brand licensing company The Point 1888. On their website, their values are exceptionally clear, and their blog on what they call life-work balance highlights examples of their flexible working approach. With involvement, working for an organisation shouldn't just be about doing the role and getting paid at the end of the month. You should feel as if you're part of the organisation, have the ability to influence and can suggest new ideas. So consider whether the organisation that you're looking at welcomes new ideas. Do they encourage feedback and accept suggestions on how they can develop? Do they give employees autonomy to make decisions? Do they allow employees to take ownership for work or projects? Opportunities to develop your career. Your future employer should take personal and career development seriously. Investing in these things ensures people continue to have the skills and abilities necessary to perform in ever-changing job roles. It's also an opportunity to grow talent within the organisation. When researching, ask yourself, does the organisation have the right paths to allow me to develop my career? What are the opportunities to train and gain new experience? How have other people in the organisation progressed? What is the typical career path in the job that I'm applying for? And finally, self-awareness. So you need to consider what's important to you, as we all have different values and motivations. You could ask yourself these three simple questions. What is important to me? What are my values? And what motivates me? The answers to these questions will help you work out what you need to be happy. So a good task for you to use to work out your own values is the one that you can see on the screen here. So before looking at an organisation's values, you do need to establish your own and then make that comparison. Now, you will find several exercises online, so you might well want to find a variety of activities and see which one works best for you, or you can come back at a later point and use this one. So you'll see on the screen here that there are a number of values that are listed, and it might be that there are certain ones on that screen that stand out to you as being ones that are important to you. So have a look at those, and the best way to do the task is to try and pick out 4 or 5 of those that are particularly calling out to you as being the things that matter the most to you. Now, it is important to try and narrow it down to 4 or 5, because although you might think all of them are important, if you think that you value everything, then it's really hard to then map that across to an employer. In terms of finding out where employers share their values, you can usually find these on their website, and if you can't find them, you can always get in touch with them to see if they have a document that they're willing to share. Employers are putting more emphasis on values these days, so definitely go and see what they are saying are theirs. Sometimes it can be difficult to work out what your values actually are, so it might feel easier to just simply list skills and then try to manipulate these into values, but skills and values are different things. Values are lasting beliefs or ideals about what's good or bad and desirable or undesirable. They have a major influence on a person's behaviour and attitude. So have a bit of time, come back, look at these and work out which ones are the most important to you. Once you have a clearer understanding of which values matter to you, you can then identify your best employer match based on what they stand for. You should also find it easier to answer application form and interview questions as well. You might even spot the ones which are linked to values and be able to provide relevant examples. So I hope the content of today's session has been useful. In terms of what is coming up next, the session 2 is called the job search, and that focuses on where to find the jobs, how to network, whether you should take a single focus approach or a scattergun approach, and also really key right now, remaining resilient in an uncertain jobs market. So we have some resources to share with you. So we have the goal setting worksheet and career planning checklists, which I mentioned earlier. So we'll make sure that these resources are available to you. You can also find my book over on Amazon. And the most important resource, which we will keep mentioning in every session that we run, is your career service. They are doing some excellent work and offering all sorts of things right now. So if you haven't already, do get in touch with them and find out what they are able to offer to support you. So just finally, before we close today, you can see the various social channels there for both the university and for us at SRS. We'd love to connect with you, and if you have any questions as a result of attending our webinars, then definitely get in touch with us and we'd love to hear from you. So we'll see you on the next session. Thanks
very much, guys.